manage your damage.
That is.
What is democratic socialism?
So all that is, if you compare that to democratic capitalism, is a different economic system.
What does that mean?
Rattlesnakes on some yellow flags hanging from their window panes. Buddy, you should watch where you...
Billionaires, inequality, oppression, blah, 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 and every other grievance in the country. Some of those may be real issues, but they are not a definition. CNN had a panel talking about Zohran Mamdani-backed socialist candidates winning in New York, and Sir Michael Singleton asked the question that should be very easy to answer if this movement is as serious as they want us to believe it is. What is democratic socialism? Watch this setup clip first. Let's go.
We're still in the anti-establishment element of our political history, I suppose, in our country right now. But to me, if I'm a Democrat, I'm really wondering, and I'm really concerned about this going beyond just New York, beyond Washington, D.C., because I can assure you, we're going to make the argument to voters, you can either be for less taxes or the party that wants to tax you more, because if you're going to say everything's for free, that money has to come from somewhere.
Well, it already is happening all around.
You run the risk of pushing out a lot of highly successful people. I just think about Mamdani. Mamdani promised a lot of things. It's really quick. What has he accomplished of any of the things he's promised? I don't know.
Sure, Michael asked the question. Can it expand? I'll let you answer that later, but go ahead.
Can this expand outside of New York City? And I actually don't think it can. I mean, just look at. I think New York is a microcosm.
I'll tell you what.
I think these types of candidates that have won are not the type of candidates that could win in Virginia or New Jersey. Look at Mikey Sherrill. Look at Abigail Spanberg. I'm not saying that you can't have
what I'm saying is, but you have a messenger and you have a message.
But also look at
Sabrina, the congresswoman who replaced Mikey Sherrill, who New Jersey 11th, and Lilia Mejia is far more progressive. Mikey Sherrill is a moderate.
I don't think this is expansive of the party. I mean, look at Kate Connolly, who won in Westchester. I mean, the Hudson Valley seat. That is a moderate Democrat.
To do what the Democratic leaders have done. And the Democratic leaders, what they've done is unfortunately join Republicans in trying to bash things that people don't even know about. So they've taken catchphrases and joined Republicans saying, hey, these are bad, instead of explaining. People don't even know what Democratic socialism is.
Like what catchphrase?
So that line right there is why this whole exchange matters. I think it's Joanna Man. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The guy that's arguing with Sir Michael, he says people don't even know what democratic socialism is. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Explain it. That's not a hostile or a trick question. It's the most basic possible question. I think Sir Michael's 100% right. The Democrats should be concerned about this, not excited. Let me be clear. I'm not saying this automatically spreads everywhere. Sabrina Singh makes a very fair point. New York is its own little political ecosystem. You have extreme wealth, extreme poverty, activist networks, low turnout primaries, and these little ideological pockets where this kind of candidate can win. It doesn't mean it scales across the entire country, because it does make these places test cases. They will continue to show you what happens when the progressive wing gets what it says it wants. You know the pitch, it's always the same. You're struggling, the system is unfair, someone else has too much, the government should step in and make your life easier. Emotionally, I understand why that lands with people, but emotional frustration is not the same thing as a coherent economic system. So when Jumanji says people don't know what democratic socialism is, Sir Michael basically says, great, then tell us. So this is the thing I want you to watch for. The question, remember, is about a definition, but the answer becomes a long list of other problems. Back to it.
People don't even know what that is. How American that is.
What is democratic socialism?
So all that is, if you compare that to democratic capitalism, is a different economic system.
What does that mean?
Hold on. If you tell people anywhere in this country, do you like your K through 12 education? Do you like your public libraries?
Yeah, but what's the difference from economics that
but it's just those kind of things that we want to push when it comes to housing.
What is the different form of economics that
when you have a system, and I think anyone would agree with this, that will create a trillionaire while you have abject poverty. That is a system
he's not a trillionaire. He's not
billionaires. Trillionaire. But it doesn't matter.
Elon Musk is valuing
That's what I'm saying. What Democratic leaders need to do is translate and not join Republicans in pushing back on things that the party says it stands for. The party says it stands for everybody.
The party says it stands for everybody. So you have an issue with people who have achieved great things,
No, I want to see
the
red tape.
consumer. The
I want to
consumer. Wait a minute here, because you're saying if someone becomes a billionaire, let's just talk. This is basic economics.
Well, I want to go back to the message and the messenger.
If you create a
not
product,
every messenger
if you
will work
create, wait a minute,
everywhere.
if you
But
create
the message
if you
can work in
create
different
if you
places.
create a product that the consumer then buys, then that investors, including retail investors, can invest in the stock market. That's how wealth is thus built. Typically, that wealth is tied to ownership.
Let me not get it. Let's not. Hold on a second. We don't have a lot of time, so let's just a second.
To healthcare.
We don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to get too much in the weeds on the
but
one.
this matters, though.
On the one
Economics
person.
matters.
No, hold on a second. But let's just talk about the broader issue, okay? I think what the people like Zoran Mamdani are putting on the table is: do we need a more fair economic system where people at the bottom can do better and not just people at the top? And the reason that message is resonating is because it is a fact that economic inequality has been supercharged in the last 10, 20, 30 years in this country. So that is a fact that's irrespective of where you are in this country. And I think that's why there is a real question of, it's not about, are you going to run socialists everywhere, but is the anger against the establishment, the anger against an economic system that is leaving people worried about what they put in their gas tank and how much money they have for it, is that anger going to fuel candidates that speak to it versus the candidates who just want to maintain the status quo?
I would say that one of the things we learned last night is that past the very friendly smile of Zoran Mamdani, he is a ruthless tactician and an ideologue who wants more people of his ideological bent elected, and he's not satisfied with just being. And he doesn't. And even Lydia Velázquez endorsed him, and he didn't. And the other thing that from last night is, to quote my friend Whoopi Goldberg, I would say to Chuck Schumer, dude, you're in danger, because this I think puts a lot of wind in the sails of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Do you think it was economic concerns that got Dan Goldman banned from that coffee shop in Brooklyn?
I think, first of all, that was horrible, and so I want to make sure I lift it up. Dan Goldman is a gentleman as far as I'm concerned. I also think it was horrible, the anti-Haitian and anti-Black rhetoric, and anti-Muslim rhetoric that occurred with the Chevalier race. But I do think economics is at the root of it, and equality.
In that specific instance,
but
you think it had anything to do with
a lot of specifics, but we need to look at what's happening.
I just want you to admit what was actually behind these congressional races.
We're
talking all around it.
No, we're not. What was behind those races was that people can't afford to live, and the inequality that exists in different spaces.
All right.
Okay.
Everyone, thank you very.
Did he come close to answering the question? The question wasn't, are schools good or libraries or...
What's your definition of equity? Go ahead.
Welcome back.
I want to suggest something to you that for you to ponder, and that is, while I don't think there's anybody that loves black men, black people, now that's not to the exclusion of any love for white people or Jewish people or any other kind of people, the Arapaho, the Navajo Indians, anybody else. I love all God's people. But I think specifically if we want to talk about a particular region of my love, black people are the apple of my eye. I love them. And I've given up millions of dollars, property, prestige, and perhaps private jets. I mean, if I'd stayed with Procter & Gamble, I'd probably be living on the south of France someplace, because I would have gone on and become a great business executive. Don't I look like a business executive now? Don't I look successful? If I'd stayed with corporate America. But I gave that up because I want to help my black brother. I want to understand him. But black people, for whatever reasons, and I will try to explain them if you'll give me the opportunity, have developed a sense of inferiority. And that sense of inferiority has catapulted them into a mental mind state where they see white people as better than them, and they try to counter it. We can start with Elijah Poole, who was the son of a Baptist preacher who started the religion called the Black Nation of Islam, who said that he met this master Fard Muhammad, who taught him the ways of Islam, and that also taught him that this creator of humankind called Jakub, that the black man is the original man, and that the black man then created the white man who later became the devil. This was all an attempt to deal with the pain. When you hear anybody say that Malcolm X and all that crowd, Malcolm actually tried to say this Black Nation of Islam is about just about our men feeling inferior. Muslims are white as well. The same thing with the most recent finding of the nation of the Jews, the black Jews, Israelites. But here, let me quickly get to what I want to get to. One of the things that Obama, the servant, the son of Satan, the long-legged Mac Daddy, was able to do was to bring the courts to the point where black people align themselves with queers. We were talking LGBTQ, homosexuals, trannies, lesbians, bisexuals, queers. And queers have been operating in the closet, or operating as a people that did not have the kind of acceptability as humans as did heterosexual people did. And so they survived, going back to Sodom and Gomorrah and through the Bible days, as an inferior group. But then comes the son of Satan, Barack Hussein, the long-legged Mac Daddy Obama, put several members on the court bench, and because he was and is and remains the servant of Satan, and wanted to attack the greatest thing that God ever did. The greatest thing that God ever did was not create the sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the oceans. The greatest thing that God ever did was he created a man separately and a woman separately, and then gave them the power to create boys and girls, or men and women. That's the greatest thing God ever did. But a queer, a lesbian, a homosexual, they disavow that greatness. And so for many, many years, humanity frowned on anybody who came out of that bag. What Obama did, I want you to listen to me very carefully, and I'm going through with y'all. What Obama did was this. In the Obergefell versus Hodges decision of June of 2015, was able to use the 14th Amendment to the Constitution to say that queers were like black people. Black people had been considered inferior and needed to be segregated, as did the great, if you will, legal wrangling of Thurgood Marshall before the Supreme Court, using the basis of the 14th Amendment. And what the Congress did in the 14th Amendment when they passed it in 1868, that separate but equal was not justice. And so what the court finally decided in that decision was that black people were treated as and looked upon as inferior. And if they were kept in separate quarters and separate schools and separate conditions, that inferiority would have a great mental effect upon black people. And so therefore it had to be moved, and black children and white children had to be able to go to school together. Well, come along nearly 100 years later, and Obama, not, if you will, Thurgood Marshall, put people on the court who then said that queers have been living a segregated life. that queers have lived segregated. They've understood their segregation. They've not had the right to marry. They've not had the right to insurance policies. That they have lived a queers for the history of humanity, from the day God said, "Let there be light," that queers have lived a segregated life. And now they want to be integrated. They want to be equal to the heterosexuals, those that live by the biblical standard. And so the way that was, if you will, enforced upon humanity here in America was Obama and his crowd of fallen angels went back to the 14th Amendment, the same amendment that blessed black people, took black people up out of inferiority and made them equal to white society. They went back to that and said black people, that queers are like black people. They're oddballs. They are not really a part of the best of creation, and they're going to need a law to make them equal. And the law is going to have to stand behind the fact that black people are inferior, but we're going to make a law that says they must be treated equal. We've looked upon them as being inferior, being unable. And so the 14th Amendment said that black people needed to be treated as equals, even though in the hearts and minds of spirits, you cannot regulate, if you will, equality among people who actually believe that black people were inferior. Well, here comes the queers, and here come Obama. And they use the same thing, saying queers are like black people. They're not equal. They are not of the same, if you will, entitlement of rights. But we're going to write a law called the Obergefell versus Hodges. That's what it ultimately came out to be on, I think, June 16th in the year, June 26th in the year 2015, that said that blacks and queers are inherently born unequal, but the law of the Constitution makes them equal. And even though they still aren't equal, there is a law that forces you to recognize their equality. Now, I don't believe that blacks are unequal or inferior. I don't believe that. Are they economically inferior? Are they, if you will, nation building inferior? I think it's only because they have not had their time. I think if you go back and retrospect everything, blacks built the pyramid, the Sphinx. They built Egypt, the greatest mechanized army, medicine, and palaces that the world had never seen were built by black people. And then God cursed them. God whooped their butts one night with Moses, and they put Jews in slavery. Black people did for 400 years. God whooped them, scattered them, killed all their children, took away their intelligence and their abilities, and then sent them scattered into southern sub-Sahara Africa. And to this very day, they've not built anything since. They did once. But they've allowed themselves now. I stood up and said, no, you cannot say that queers and blacks ought to be made equal by the same. I'm not equal to a queer. My inferiority or my superiority or my being is not predicated upon what queers are. But black people went for it hook, line, and sinker. And because it was led by Obama, though there should be a separation of church and state, when the Constitution took the 14th Amendment, our one amendment to the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, when the Constitution, when the court took the 14th Amendment and said queers are inferior or treated as inferior, like blacks were treated as inferior. So if you can give equality to blacks who were once thought inferior, you're going to have to give equality to queers who were also thought inferior. And so queers and blacks under the same 14th Amendment law, or they were once thought to be inferior, and I'm not sure that that has changed. But when the Constitution was, and the so-called black president was able to enact that, the churches dropped what Jesus said in the book of Leviticus, what Jesus said in Stare Decisis when he said that I've not come to change the law of Moses, including the law that says man shall not lie with man as with womankind, and woman shall not lie with woman as with mankind. I've not come to change that. The Stare Decisis law of Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, verse 17 through 19. Jesus said, I didn't come to change Moses' law. Now you can do what you want with the Constitution about whether black people were treated inferior and where queers were treated inferior. So therefore they're brothers and sisters under the same sense of inferior human beings. So let's check the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Give rights of equality to blacks and rights of equality to queers. Their rights were not inalienable. Their rights were not given to them by God. The queers' rights were not given to them, so the Constitution would have to give them the rights. The black people's rights were not given to them by God, so the Constitution is going to have to give them their rights. But their rights are not inalienable. They were not born with those rights. Black people were not born. So here's the 14th Amendment. Queers were not born with the same right. So here's the 14th Amendment. But that's a lie. Queers were not born. Black people were born with inalienable rights. The Bible makes it absolutely clear. But queers were not born. Queers were born condemned by God and condemned by the Bible and condemned by the Word of God. So when that happened, though there should be a separation of church and state, the church fell down, including the Catholic Church, fell down and denied the Word of God and began to embrace the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and denied what Jesus said about the law, what the Apostle Paul said about man and seeking the flesh and sex of another man, and woman seeking the flesh and sex of another woman, that they've been turned over to a reprobate mind. The church disavowed the power of those statements and took up the teachings of Obama and the power of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. You know, a lot of people are concerned that Donald Trump now has a conservative court with 6 members, and with 3 members he put on himself. But there is nothing that the conservative court that Trump has put together can ever do as much damage to humanity and hatred and blasphemy against the Word of God as what Obama did. He remains the king of blaspheming God. And the church that have accepted this and have said to black people, the queers were like y'all, they were inferior. We were never inferior, and we never will be. However, the queers are. Not only are they inferior, but they are condemned. So what are we going to do about this? We're going to continue to promote it. And the queers now have the power of the law to condemn anybody who does not now treat that which is inferior and that which is unequal as equal, marring the history of black people and their struggles here in America. We're not inferior. Listen to your brother, Pastor Manning. And I'll say one other thing as well. From this day forward, never vote for another black politician. I don't care if they're promising you the moon. Black people still feel inferior. You know, if you give Morgan Freeman an Oscar for a great performance in some movie, they'll take that Oscar and stand there in their commitment. And somewhere in their speech, they'll say that the Oscar that's been given to them is not as heavy or full of gold as the one given to Tom Hanks or Brad Pitt. No matter what you do for black people, even after the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and 100 years of that amendment, no matter what you do for black people, they will always cry that the white man is treated better, that the white man has done better. No matter what you do, give them a basketball or baseball, and they will never feel qualified or equal to white folk. My task before Almighty God is to eradicate that. Perhaps the 3 worst things that have happened to humanity for black people has been the black Muslims, the Israelites, and the civil rights movement. Post Dr. King, those three movements have been screaming from the rooftop, we black people are inferior, so we gotta have a black God. You know what, black people, when you hear black people say Jesus is black, when they know he's Jewish, when they, you know what they're saying? I'm hurting. We black people, we are the lowest on the world's totem pole. We are not, our hair is not as nice, we're not as intelligent. We black people need something to say we are important. They're crying. When you hear people say that Jesus is black, they know he's not black, but they are in pain. They're crying. We're hurting. Please, let Jesus be black. Or when they say the black Muslims, that the black man is the original man, you know what they're saying? We are hurting. The white man is doing so much. He's built nations. We black people, we got to have something. We got to have our religion. We got to, and the white man is the devil. We black people are good, and the white man is the devil. They're hurting. When you see these stupid, unbelievably clowns, I mean absolute clowns, standing on the corner called Israelites, dressed up like somebody from Hitler's Gestapo. They're saying, we're hurting. We the black Jew. The Jews stole our identity. We got to take our, well, if you're a Jew, how did somebody steal? You a Jew and you're saying somebody stole your identity? Now you got to take it back with all this clown outfit that you're wearing. You ain't got 2 cents in your, to rub together. You don't own nothing. And you say you the black Jew? They're saying, we're hurting. We are inferior. Look at the world. Everybody's doing better than us, than black people. Everybody. We are inferior. Thurgood Marshall wrote, he put us in the schools, but nothing has nothing has been put in our heart. Thurgood Marshall didn't put it in our hearts that we're children of God. He put it into the hearts of the white people to accept us as equal to them. But he didn't put in our hearts that we are equal under the word of Almighty God. It ain't in our hearts yet. We're hurting. We're black Jews. We're black Muslims. We're civil rights. We're Black Lives Matter. And on and on and on and on it goes. The inferiority of the black man. Never vote for a black politician. You're better off with a Ku Klux Klan member running the city of New York than you are a black man, because he's going to sell you out. I think the worst thing that have ever happened to black people in the history of the world is not slavery. It was Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton and David Dinkins will go down in the history of God's mind as the people, the ones who've done the most injury. Well, Al Sharpton, Obama, and David Dinkins. Let me put Obama there as well. At any rate, I'm going to keep on bringing the truth. You pray about what I've said. What I've said, I'm sure, is unsettling to a number of you, that black people, no matter what you do for them, it's never good enough. No matter what you give them, they're always going to look over and say you gave the white man something better. Even at the Oscars, even at the Nobel Prizes, it just gets worse as it goes along. And the weaker these black people are. In fact, never in the history of the world has anybody cursed themselves the way rappers cursed black people, black women, and then kill one another. You know, they used to kill a rapper. These are musical people, not Liberace and Elvis Presley. or the Beach Boys. These rappers used to kill a rapper every day. All the way up to Tupac Shakur. They would just kill each other, call each other names, cuss each other woman, because they felt so inferior. Rap music is about how inferior black people are. And the slicker you are, and the more you realize black people are inferior, people like Beyonce and Jay-Z and Puff Daddy and others took advantage of the fact that black boys feel inferior, that black children feel inferior. And so therefore they made millions of dollars cussing each other out. and telling each other how inferior they are. Queers have now come along and said, what you've done for the blacks, you've got to do for us. I'm going to do more teaching. You're welcome to come to our church. You got to drop all that nonsense and craziness. You got to realize that you are not inferior. You don't need the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. If you will let Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee Institute, what they did, they didn't need to be integrated. They were just being themselves. You know what? We could have lived without integration. No, we could have. See, that's the problem y'all have with me. We didn't need Thurgood Marshall to integrate us. We could have lived without it. We could have just been our natural selves. We could have pulled ourselves up by our own bootstrap. We could have gone to all colored schools. And you're looking at an example. When I graduated from Peterson High School in 1965, it was still segregated. I never sat down near a white student, but I have succeeded in life. I didn't need to go to the white school to be a success. Now, you may not consider I'm a success, but I'm world traveled, I'm well learned, I'm Ivy League sword. No, but I never went to a white school and I never sat down. And we didn't need that we didn't need that integration that Thurgood Marshall brought up. We didn't need it. We could have stayed among ourselves and did what we were capable of doing. We didn't need white people to make us feel like we are humans. All we had to do was love one another, open up the Bible, and read the Word of God. Maybe the white people might want to come to our schools. Well, that'll be their choice. But I never went to a white school, never sat down at a white dinner table, never ate in a white restaurant for the first 18 years of my life. And I'm no failure. I find myself to be quite successful. You're saying, well, Pastor Manning, are you saying we should turn back the clock of Thurgood Marshall? Yes. We should turn back a lot of clocks that led us in the wrong direction because we fed the idea that we were inferior. Booker T. Washington didn't believe that. Booker T. Washington started Tuskegee Institute, told us to learn how to work in the fields, and how to work in the science labs, and we became a great people. I know that what I'm saying is unsettling, and quite frankly, there are 2 points here I'd like to make. Point number one is that we didn't need what Thurgood Marshall did, and didn't need what Martin King did for us either. We did not need. Go to the back of the bus, go sit down back there. It's still on the damn bus, and you can get off it quicker than those who are sitting in the front. But the thing I think I want to say for this generation is that the queers, the trannies, the homos, the lesbos are saying blacks are inferior, we are inferior, but if you gave equality to blacks who are inferior, then give equality to us who are not only inferior as queers, but we are condemned by the Word of God.
Entire marriage on the line, and then one day he was done, just like that, gone.
There's no loyalty, and you got to look up and your person that you invited to your house and you celebrating your birthdays and going to games with.
But loyalty? Gary Payton didn't get any of that from Lisa Ray either, because while he was burning his marriage down for her, she was already planning her exit, and what Gary found out next made him walk away and never look back. Let's get one thing crystal clear before we go anywhere. The Lisa Ray that the public thinks they know Diamond from the Players Club, the girl next door turned first lady of Turks and Caicos, that version of Lisa Ray is carefully curated because the real version is far more complicated and far more interesting. See, Lisa Ray peaked professionally in the late 90s and early 2000s. Her most iconic role, Diamond, from the 1998 film Players Club, made her a household name overnight. She was stunning. She was magnetic. She had that thing that made you stop scrolling and pay attention every single time she walked on screen. But here's the problem with being that beautiful. In Hollywood, everybody wants a piece of you, and not everyone wants the best for you. So So when the acting roles started slowing down and the checks stopped coming in the way they used to, Lisa Ray allegedly made a very calculated decision about how she was going to maintain the life she'd gotten accustomed to. And that decision involved men, very specific men, rich men, powerful men, men who had something to offer beyond just their time and their attention. Now, Lisa Ray will sit on any couch and tell you that she has standards, that she's not going to stress a man out by making him keep up with her lifestyle. And she means every word.
I don't want to stress you out by trying to keep up with my lifestyle that I already have and am accustomed to. Why? Because if I'm going to these restaurants just for lunch meetings and it takes you your whole check to take me there, I don't want to stress you out. You cannot hang with me.
She said that out loud. On camera, no filter, no shame. And honestly, you have to respect the honesty, even when the delivery is a little jarring. Lisa Ray has never pretended to be something she isn't. She wants luxury. She wants someone who can fund it without flinching. But what happens when the man you've chosen as your sponsor decides he wants more than a business transaction? What happens when he falls all the way in love and you're already looking at the next one? That's the Gary Payton story. And it is absolutely wild from beginning to end. Now, for those who need a refresher, Gary Payton is one of the greatest point guards to ever play in the NBA. 10-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year. The man nicknamed the Glove because nobody, and we mean nobody, could get past him on the court. Off the court, though, Gary had a serious weakness, and her name was Lisa Ray McCoy. Nobody has been completely upfront about exactly how Gary and Lisa Ray first crossed paths, but what everybody does agree on is that when they connected, it was immediate, it was intense, and, it was incredibly messy from jump, because Gary Payton was a married man. He and his wife, Monique, not the comedian, his wife, Monique Payton, had been together for years. They had a family. They had a life built together. But none of that mattered once Gary set his eyes on Lisa Ray. According to insiders, Gary didn't just quietly slip into an affair and try to keep things discreet the way most men in his position would. No, Gary Payton went all the way in, reportedly paid all of Lisa Ray's bills, spoiled her with a white Range Rover, made it very clear to her that he was prepared to handle every single financial need she had. Think about that for a second. This is a man actively dismantling his family for a woman who, by her own admission, was looking for someone to fund her lifestyle. And Gary walked right into that dynamic with both eyes open, writing checks and burning bridges. Now, here's where this gets even more complicated, because apparently things between Gary and Lisa Ray weren't just a quiet side arrangement. They were visible enough that people around them started talking. And when the whispers got loud enough, Lisa Ray made a move that absolutely nobody expected. She went to Gary's wife. Let that sink in. Lisa Ray, the alleged side piece, walked up to Monique Payton and essentially said, "Your husband and I have been involved." And what she likely thought was going to happen, Monique packing her bags and clearing the way, did not happen at all. Monique wasn't going anywhere. Now, why would Lisa Ray do something that bold? Because she had done the math. Lisa Ray knew that Gary was invested in her financially, emotionally, all of it. She had seen how far he was willing to go. And so she likely calculated that if she forced Monique's hand, Gary would have to choose. And if Gary chose, she was confident about which way that choice would go. But Monique Payton did not play by those rules. She refused to leave. She refused to be moved. And that decision completely changed the dynamic, because now, instead of Gary riding off into the sunset with Lisa Ray the way she may have envisioned you, had a full-blown war between Monique and Lisa Ray that spilled out into public spaces, and it got physical. According to sources, things got so heated that Monique and Lisa Ray ended up at the same basketball game, and when they came face to face, Monique reportedly lost it. Word is that she beat the taste out of Lisa Ray's mouth right there, and it literally took multiple people to get between them before the situation escalated any further. Let's sit with that image for a moment. You've got one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood getting handled at a basketball game because she went to a woman's home and announced she'd been sleeping with her husband. Monique was not for the games, not even a little bit. Now, here's where the story really twists, because you would think that after all of that, after the bills Gary paid, after the Range Rover, after the scandal, after the physical altercation, Gary and Lisa Ray would have either cemented their relationship or blown up entirely. But what actually happened was something in between. And what Gary Payton did next is the part nobody really talks about. All right, this is the part the internet keeps skipping over. Everyone talks about Gary paying Lisa Ray's bills. Everyone talks about Monique refusing to leave. Everyone talks about the basketball game incident. But what nobody focuses on is the timeline of what was happening on Lisa Ray's end while all of this was unfolding. Because while Gary Payton was out here burning his marriage to the ground, Lisa Ray was not sitting at home, waiting for him to finalize anything. She was moving quietly, strategically, but moving. And the man she was moving toward, Michael McKeesick, the future Prime Minister of Turks and Caicos. Now think about what that represents to a woman like Lisa Ray, a woman who by her own admission is looking for someone who can fund a luxury lifestyle without blinking. Gary Payton was an NBA star, that's one level of money and access, but a Caribbean head of state, that's a completely different kind of power, different kind of doors, different kind of status, and Lisa Ray saw it. So while Gary was telling his wife about their affair, while Monique was standing her ground, while the drama was playing out in public, Lisa Ray had already started building something on the side with Michael McKeesick. She got engaged to him, not in private, not quietly. She got engaged and let the world find out. And Gary Payton, he found out the same way everyone else did. He wasn't told. He wasn't given a heads up. He wasn't pulled aside and shown any loyalty at all. He found out through public channels like a fan, not like a man who had invested everything into this woman. And according to people close to the situation, Gary was livid, not just hurt, not just embarrassed, but genuinely furious because from his perspective, he had done everything. He had risked his marriage, he had spent his money, he had gone to war for this relationship. And Lisa Ray had been quietly setting up her next chapter the entire time, using him as a bridge to get to a better situation. That's what ended it, not a blow-up fight, not a dramatic falling out, not some revelation that changed everything overnight. Gary Payton walked away from Lisa Ray because he finally understood what she had been doing all along. He was the sponsor, and the contract had expired. Now, before anyone says this is unfair to Lisa Ray, let's look at the full picture, because Gary Payton wasn't the first, and Michael McKeesick wasn't the last. The pattern actually stretches all the way back to 1992, when Lisa Ray was married to former NFL player Tony Martin. 2 years into that marriage, she allegedly started an affair with Ray Lewis, who just happened to be Tony's friend and his fellow NFL player. His friend. When Tony found out, sources say he was devastated, absolutely broken by the betrayal. Not just because of the affair, but because of who it was with. The woman he married and the man he trusted both went behind his back, and by the time he found out, it had apparently been going on long enough that it couldn't just be dismissed as a mistake. After Tony, the list reads like a who's who of famous and powerful men. Allen Iverson while he was still married. Al Sharpton for the connections and the doors he could open. Genuine for a period, though that apparently fizzled before it became anything significant. And Bobby Brown allegedly claimed intimacy with Lisa Ray while he was already with Whitney Houston. Let that list marinate, because what you're looking at isn't just a woman who made some questionable choices in her romantic life. What you're looking at is a very deliberate strategy. Each man on that list had something specific to offer: money, status, access, connections, and each relationship seemed to serve a purpose in Lisa Ray's larger plan for her life. And the men who couldn't hold up their end of the deal, they got replaced. Gary Payton was probably the most dramatic example of this because he went so all in. He loved hard and spent harder and fought publicly for a woman who, if we're being completely real, was always going to eventually upgrade the moment a better opportunity came along. And Michael McKeesick was that upgrade. So Lisa Ray becomes the First Lady of Turks and Caicos. On paper, goals. She's living in the Caribbean, married to a head of state, wearing designer everything, attending state dinners and international events. From the outside looking in, this was the ultimate come up for a woman who grew up in Chicago and broke into Hollywood on her talent and her looks. But behind closed doors, that marriage was falling apart almost as fast as it started. Michael McKeesick and Lisa Ray's marriage lasted from 2006 to 2008, 2 years. And by the time it was over, Lisa Ray was making claims that would have been unbelievable if they weren't so specific. She alleged financial misconduct, she claimed assets were hidden from her, and the split was not amicable, not even close. Now here's the detail that never gets enough attention. Nicole Murphy was reportedly having an affair with Michael McKeesick at some point during this marriage. The same Michael that Lisa Ray had essentially left Gary Payton for. The same man Lisa Ray had strategically positioned herself to marry. And Nicole Murphy, who was her friend, who had been at her wedding, allegedly flew to Turks and Caicos on Michael's private jet. Lisa Ray didn't find out through rumor or gossip. She found out through receipts, flight records, documentation, cold hard evidence that her friend had been in her husband's orbit in ways that had nothing to do with friendship.
Did she go after Lisa Ray's husband when she was married to
Absolutely. When my sister was the First Lady of Turks and Caicos, absolutely.
When she confronted Nicole about it.
But when she sat her ass on that Wendy Williams couch and lied and said that I was the liar, that's what brought this back up. Then it was like, no, we talked about this. We don't have to talk about this publicly. Come see me. Come see me.
Nicole didn't just deny it. She went on national television and called Lisa Ray a liar. And that was the moment that turned a private grudge into a decade-long public war. Now here's the part of this story that nobody wants to say out loud. Lisa Ray, a woman who by multiple accounts spent years as someone else's side piece, became the victim of the exact same thing she had done to other women. Monique Payton could tell you exactly what it felt like. Tony Martin's ex-wife could tell you, and now Lisa Ray was sitting in that seat. And the way Lisa Ray talked about Nicole, the rage, the betrayal, the disgust is almost identical to how Monique likely felt when Lisa Ray showed up at her door to announce the affair with Gary.
Nicole Murphy, you're disgusting. You sat on that couch and you laughed. It ain't no moment, it's a mess. You wrong for that. You the type of women that let these men be evil. They gotta have some help, and you women like you are that type of help.
Read that back. You the type of women that let these men be evil. But Lisa Ray told a man's wife herself about their affair, essentially weaponizing that information to try to blow up his marriage so she could have him. How is that not also letting a man be evil? The difference, and this is the only real difference, is that Lisa Ray wanted the men she involved herself with to choose her. Nicole Murphy, allegedly, just wanted what she could get in the moment without any interest in building anything permanent. Two different motivations, two different strategies, but the same damage left behind. And the women who always paid the price? The wives. So let's come back to Gary Payton, because in a strange way, Gary was the smartest person in this whole situation. Not because he was innocent, he wasn't. He cheated on his wife. He spent money on a woman who wasn't his. He let things get public in ways that could have been avoided. He made a mess, but at some point, Gary Payton looked at the situation clearly and understood something that most men in his position refuse to see until it's far too late. He understood that Lisa Ray wasn't in love with him. She was in love with what he could do for her. And the moment someone came along who could do more, the upgrade was coming. It was always coming. It was built into the dynamic from day one. The white Range Rover, the paid bills, the full financial investment, none of it was enough to make Lisa Ray choose Gary over a better opportunity. Because for Lisa Ray, according to everyone who's watched her patterns over the years, the relationship was always transactional first. And Gary felt that. He felt it when he found out about the engagement through the press. He felt it when he realized she had never planned to stay. And he walked away with his lesson learned, which, if you think about it, is more than most men in his position come out of those situations with. Now the question that nobody really asks is, did Gary Payton ever come forward publicly about what happened between him and Lisa Ray? And the answer is largely no. Gary has stayed quiet on the specifics. No tell-all interviews. No cryptic social media posts calling her out. No co-signing of the various stories that came out about Lisa Ray's patterns over the years. And that silence actually says more than words would. And once that money was gone or significantly depleted, Nicole's choices started to look a lot like Lisa Ray's playbook. Michael Strawn won't sign the prenup, relationship ends, Jimmy Jackson, Nick Cannon, and then Antoine Fuqua, who was married to Layla Rochon, a woman who was reportedly one of Nicole's close friends. Two women, both beautiful, both famous, both broke or close to it at different points, both making very similar decisions about how to solve that problem, and both furious at each other for doing the exact same thing. The Lisa Ray and Nicole Murphy beef, when you strip everything away, is really just two women looking in a mirror and hating what they see reflected back at them. Now, despite all of this, despite the decade of public shade, the receipts, the sister getting involved, the national television denials, Lisa Ray and Nicole Murphy actually sat down and tried to hash this out. And here's the part that's genuinely heartbreaking about this whole saga. In that moment, in that conversation, both women sounded like they were ready to let it go. Like they both understood that the beef was costing them more than it was giving them. But then Nicole went on Wendy Williams and called Lisa Ray a liar. And whatever door had opened in that private conversation slammed completely shut.